to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the classic Doctor's New Monster story, The Harvest of the Sycorax, written by James Gloss. James Gloss is a very fascinating figure in the Doctor Who community. He is been a producer for many Doctor Who stories. A great example would be the animations done for some DVDs. He also went on to produce not one but two animated original stories featuring the 10th Doctor, the Infinite Quest, and I believe the other one is called Dreamland, which stories we will be tackling. But more recently he's come to be known mostly for his Time Lord Victorious storyline. A big, massive event that appeared in all audio dramas, comic books, novels, escape rooms, just every sort of medium except for the main television series. So that's very intriguing in that. So this is him outside of Time Lord Victorious. This was in 2006, 4 years before Time Lord Victorious was a thing, before James Gloss became a household name, at least. He was well known to Doctor Who fans, but Time Lord Victorious really put his name as one of the big contenders, as one of the most important people to the Doctor Who franchise. Here we see the return of the Sycorax. As everybody is aware, this is from the series of Classic Doctor's New Monsters box set, Volume 1, which pictures a classic Doctor with a new Who monster. And this is the 7th Doctor's segment in it, featuring the monsters which only appeared in a TV series in the story The Christmas Invasion, David Tennant's first outing as the 10th Doctor. Now, the Sycorax are a very interesting bunch. When they first appeared back in 2005's Christmas special, they were really loved. Their fans were begging for them to appear. But it seemed like less and less people got interested as time's gone by, and they kind of faded into obscurity not so long after. They were kind of like a one and done scenario. So to see them return in a classic Doctor's New Monsters box set is a really interesting idea, and one that kind of baffled me when I first found this out. The Sycorax, out of all the classic Doctor Who monsters you could have brought back, the Sycorax? But not to say that the Sycorax are uninteresting creatures. They are one of the few Doctor Who monsters. In fact, I believe they are the first Doctor Who monsters to be established to have their own language, because they came up before the Jadoon. Very interesting. And they have this whole witchcraft and medieval theme about them, which makes them a very visually stunning creature. Again, very strange that they put it on audio form, because you can't see it, so the story has to really rely on its dialogue to get their culture and their ideology out. And that's what makes the Sycorax so interesting. Not their real aspects as villains, because really, if you think about it, there's nothing really more to them than, as the 7th Doctor says in this story, intergalactic gangsters. But yeah, so anyway, this is the official CD cover. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is going to be the last story of the 7th Doctor era that we're going to be talking about. So for me, in my mind, at the very moment, this is the finale to the 7th Doctor era. That will all obviously change when I listen to more, but for now, to me, this is the last story of the 7th Doctor era. It features no companions. Big Finish has not adapted any story revolving around Bernice Summerfield's leaving, or the leaving of companions after that. Chris and, I can't remember what the girl's name, but Anyway, the official Big Finish CD cover, really cool there. As I stated before, this is in the Classic Doctors New Monsters box set. And like always, I make my own DVD cover. Now, I've designed this one myself, and I actually kind of retconned the story a little bit. As in, on the CD, as you can see, he is much in line with his TV appearance back in the 1980s. In fact, I think you could see, yeah, he's wearing his costume from his last season. But I kind of retconned that and made him the TV movie counterpart. I made this before I actually listened to the story. I would have thought there wasn't going to be any reference to his costume. I was surprised to find out that they do actually mention his silly sweater. So I will have to update this with the right costume. But that, actually you can't even see his sweater in it, his thing. So he could still technically be wearing it. And you've got like the TV movie intro in the background and the TV TARDIS. Here's the spine if anyone is interested. That looks really good. That really works well with the rest of the DVDs in my collection. And here's the spine. Again, taking images from both the TV movie and the Christmas Invasion for the head up there. Very cool. Very interesting stuff. On to the episode. So the story actually starts off in the distant future where we meet up with a character called Zanzibar. Hashtag. That's her real name. And she is absolutely in pain. She's suffering. She has a device which is explaining that her blood is boiling and she needs all this medication until the TARDIS arrives and the doctor appears and gives her a sedative to knock her out and hopefully get a cure to her bloodline, which then leads into the intro. Yeah, it's a pre-credit sequence, a format which actually began properly with the Seventh Doctor. So I think it's a very nice little bit of irony that his story started off with a pre-credit scene and will now end, at least like in my headcanon, with a pre-credit sequence. So very interesting stuff. The Doctor then speaks to Zanzibar and he says that there's too much like oxygen in her blood and it was boiling up and she was suffering from something. But he also found something else when he was examining her. She has an infection on her lung, I think it was. But she doesn't seem too surprised. In fact, she seems to be glad of this infection. In fact, she explains she bought the infection. She shaved up money to get this infection. Whilst this is going on, the device on her wrist, this watch thing, keeps asking her, keeps explaining stuff. It's like, I sense that you have anxiety. Please take this pill. I can see that you have got a high blood pressure. Please take this pill. I can see that you are anxious. Please take this pill. That kind of stuff. And the Doctor is shocked to learn that he's bumped into a society of humans which basically they have a pill for everything. And she is absolutely feared and terrified. In fact, when the Doctor raises his voice but to show his disapproval of this society, she's like, please don't shout, it's making me feel very anxious. And then the device tells her that, right, you're feeling anxious, we suggest that you take these particular pills. And the Doctor's like, no, it's fear. It's perfectly okay to feel fear sometimes. You don't need medication for everything. That becomes the main plot of the story. And it's a very great and interesting idea, very great and interesting dynamic, and it really shows off what Doctor Who can do. It can play around with all of these interesting, silly ideas. I don't know if it works too well in this story, however. The way that it's all set up and stuff, automatically means that every 2 or 3 seconds, when the character is in some sort of disarray, whether it's nervous, anxious, feels giddy or anything like that, do we get this device constantly telling us, right, you need to take this pill, you need to take that pill. It works in concept of the ideas that the story's playing with, but I did find it very irritating that this constantly happened throughout the story. She basically explains that her infection that she gave herself had nothing to do with her blood boiling. The blood boiling was actually her being executed. She was actually one of the hostages of the Sycorax. This, where the Doctor has arrived, is actually a blood bank in space for the Plasma Corporation. It's probably just Plasma Corporation, but they've shown to the Plasma Corp. And the Sycorax have been trying to get in it. They've captured people there, and basically it's like, give us the key to your blood bank or we will murder all of our hostages. Now, what's really great is we do actually get a lot of dialogue with the Sycorax's language. I don't know if it's a Konglang. For those of you interested, Konglangs, for those of you who are unaware, are fictional languages that do actually work, that you can actually learn to speak and stuff. They are languages made up, but you can actually speak. A great example is Elvish from The Lord of the Rings, or Drashtaki from Game of Thrones, and even Klingon from Star Trek. But I'm not too sure if the Sycorax language is a Konglang, but it's very interesting that they do get the language and they do get to show it off. That's probably one of the most audible, interesting things about the Sycorax, and it's very nice to see that the language does get shown in this story. That was one of my hopes going into this story, that we get a lot of their language, and though it only appears for say like a half of the story at the start, it is very interesting. So the Doctor and Zinzabar basically becomes the Doctor's companion in this story, and what I really like is her character grows, and she's a very interesting person. She starts off as she's cowardly, she hates any sort of conflict, and she has like a pill for everything. She literally can't cope with any situation. But slowly, throughout with the Doctor's help, does she learn to stand up for herself, and that she doesn't need all this stuff to keep her going. Even though, she does go through like a kind of story arc where she can't take anything, then she kind of overcompensates. So she takes, so when she's like anxious, she takes more pills than she should, and then she becomes overconfident. And then the story kind of like balances out to the near end. But I don't think the rest of the characters fare as well. We meet up with 2 agents of the Plasma Corp, and they are basically here to try and assess the situation, assess the plan. It's strange how they didn't send any like bodyguards or anything. There is a plot twist to that, but it's going in, and that bit felt really, really odd. And the fact that nobody questions it is a very strange dilemma. And so that's basically the story. And the Doctor later on meets up with the Sycorax and gets knocked out. When he awakes, he discovers the Sycorax have actually taken a bit of his blood, which we'll use to control people. The Sycorax have the ability to control people by taking a bit of their blood and manipulating something, which is shown in the first story, written release order in the Christmas Invasion. And so this doctor actually gets controlled for a bit as Zinzabar, from her point of view, teams up with the two Plasma Corp agents. One of them is this girl who she kind of takes a fancy to, and there seems to be hitting it off. They're like, I know our the apps didn't say anything, but would you like to go on a date? That would actually be really good. Let's solve the app. And then they're like, actually, we better not. If the app didn't pair us, there's probably a good reason for it. And the male agent is like, what, you were thinking of dating each other when the app didn't tell you? That's the most stupidest idea. It mostly just wouldn't work out. So it's probably for the best that you didn't get on. Actually, in this scene, the doctor is still there, and he's kind of appalled by the fact that these humans, their love relies on the fact that they have to use his app. In fact, he encourages Zinzabar and this girl to go on with their fancies. They fancy each other. Don't let an app tell them what to do. Just go on a relationship and see how it turns out. But the male leader isn't sure because the app didn't tap them. The Sycorax then later find and kill Zinzabar's love interest, which horrifies her, and this is where she becomes overcompensating with these drugs, and she kind of becomes overconfident and overwhelmed, and she's like, right, I'm just going to take over the Sycorax. I'd kill each and every one of them if I have to. And this is where the doctor also gets knocked out and gets controlled by the blood. What I find really strange as well in this story is, I don't know if it's ever stated, I can't remember if it's stated in the story, but the doctor seems to be able to communicate with the device when he's knocked out. Like, he can message to the device that Zinzabar is wearing. It's like, you have a message for the doctor. He says, do not give up hope. There's a great scene in which Zinzabar and the agent actually find themselves on the Sycorax ship, where they meet a sort of priest, and he worships this statue full of the skulls of their victims. It is like a sacrifice to their gods or something. And when he discovers that Zinzabar and thing are at the palace, he's like, this is sacrilege, you are going to die. Oh, I forgot to mention, when the doctor then interacts with the rest of the cast, the translation circuits apply to everybody, so everybody can now understand each other. But it's a great, there's build up to that, and we do get to hear the language. But anyway, back to the priest character. What I find really interesting is Zinzabar doesn't straight away fire, or doesn't because she's scared. She offers to, I want to learn about your culture and your society. Please tell me more about this statue, about these skulls. Why do you worship these gods? But the Sycorax priest is like, you should kill me, or I'm going to kill you. And just before he whips her, the Sycorax have these electric whips. Does she then fire and kill him? And this is the first time she's ever murdered someone. And she takes pills for her nerves. It's like, oh my god, she's in shock, essentially, and she takes tablets for that. And when she meets up with the later Sycorax, she actually challenges them to combat, because they are a very cultural society, and they basically worship their old cults, their old statuses and their old stuff. So she challenges them to a fight, and they state, you will fight our champion, and if we win, we get to take over your planet, your world and stuff. But they revealed their champion. This would have been a fantastic cliffhanger. Sadly, with these classic Doctor New monsters, they're only 60 minutes, so they're the average length of a singular New Who episode. And and it doesn't have like any cliffhangers. But if they did, this would have been an amazing cliffhanger, in which they reveal that their champion is the Doctor, who's using, who thanks to the Sycorax is being controlled by the blood. The Sycorax, I also forgot to mention, the Sycorax have also used the Doctor's blood to control him, to send a message to Zinzabar to open the blood vault. But when they open it, they get ambushed by the Sycorax, which is where she challenges them. And so, not only now do they have access to the blood bank, but they're outside of the blood bank using the Doctor as their challenger. Now sadly this means that we get a pretty weak fight scene, as it's played like an average sword fight, although humorously the Doctor's using his umbrella, but it's played in a way which seems to be exclusively visual, as in the audio you just hear them go ee, ah, ooh, ah, and you got sound effects like yeah, you can, I'm trying not to hit you, da 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 da. So despite the idea being really good, I think the actual action itself is extremely weak for audio. Not to say that action can't work in audio. Patient Zero, the Sixth Doctor adventure, is a phenomenal example of action working in audio drama. But here is a sad case of where it doesn't work, in which it feels like the writer, James Gloss, didn't know how to write for an audio fight scene. But anyway, the Doctor is talking to her. He basically has control of his vocals, but he can feel himself getting enraged and wanting to kill her. And they basically come up with a plan that she's going to knock the Doctor into the blood bank and close the door. To which then the Doctor actually frees himself from the blood control, allowing him to be freed. When the Doctor opens the doors and forfeits, the Sycorax are like, this was a parade, a charade. We were never going to agree. We were just mucking around with you. We are going to take your blood banks. And the Doctor does actually try to bargain for peace, but obviously it doesn't work, and the Doctor's not surprised. So the Sycorax are about to open, to have gained full control of the human race. Every single human be controlled. However, Zinzabar discovers, thanks to a discussion with the male agent, she learns that actually the higher-ups of the Plasma Corp have actually been working with the Sycorax to sell humanity. They actually planned this, and the virus, the illness they gave themselves, is actually a immune system to the Sycorax control. Now, Zinzabar's virus was actually a really expensive one. She's been stating throughout the story that she saved up a lot of money to get this virus, not realising that it was actually a defense mechanism against the mind control. And she is shocked by this and basically challenges the Plasma Corp leader to give up and stop and to help him. But he is working for the Sycorax. The Sycorax start then using their mind control, only for it not to affect any humans. It affects the Sycorax. For you see, the Doctor was playing the long game. He was either not controlled at all, or he had a lot of control. With the Sycorax only have like a little bit of control, or very precise motives. And the Doctor, when he got locked into the Plasma Corp blood bank, he actually switched the human DNA with the Sycorax. And so the mind control set them in a way where the Doctor's in control, and he sends them with the male Plasma Corp leader on their ship to go off far away until the mind control dissipates and they gain their free will again. And the story ends with the Doctor being asked, like, where did he come from? How is he? You've shown me so much. It's basically seeming like setting up that she's going to become a recurring character, which, because of the way the box set is set up, can't actually happen. So the Doctor tells her to close her eyes and hold her breath, something which he told her to do when she was having some sort of panic attack at the start. And when she does, the Doctor silently goes away into the TARDIS and dematerializing, ending Harvest of the Sycorax. Overall, it's alright. It has some really great ideas. And I think as well, some of it really plays out, and there's a lot of great scenes and great moments. I really like Zinzibar. But there's a lot of stuff which I kind of nitpick. I really wasn't keen on these devices interrupting the dialogue every 10 to 15 minutes. I wouldn't have minded if it happened like a few times, but it just constantly happened, and it did kind of bum me out. A lot of the Sycorax kind stuff near the end kind of becomes cliched villain stuff. It's only really the start do we get a lot of that great cultural stuff that we like so much about the Sycorax. But there is stuff about the Sycorax that show off why they're great characters here. And the Seventh Doctor is in the middle of his manipulative kind of status and have literally no idea what's going on, and trying to basically build up a plan as he's going along, as with most traditional Doctors. So very interesting stuff. But I also highly recommend getting the box set. I've tackled 3 stories so far, including this one. And the first 2 are absolutely amazing and worth the purchase anyway. This story I consider a nice little bonus comparing it with the other 2. It's not one that I fell in love with. It's not one which I think... I'll go back for it. It's a nice, fun entertainment. It has a lot to say. I just wish it was paced a lot better. So there you go. That's the Harvest of the Sycorax. So join me next time, where there's change, and it's about time. Are you dressed for the occasion? Join me next time for the TV movie. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!